Just going. All right, everybody, welcome to Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A for July 5th, 2023. Pretty honored tonight to have somebody that is joining us that I respect immensely. And if you guys have not heard of this individual, by the time we are done tonight, you will know all about him. When it comes to eScouting, there is nobody else that has more knowledge. You guys have heard me talk about him when I've done my little mediocre eScouting tutorials with y'all. But tonight we got the master in the house, Mr. Mark Livesay from Treeline Pursuit Academies. Mark, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. I got the full house here.
Oh, the crazy thing with this live Q&A is we actually have more people to watch the replays than actually tune in live. And I think it's just because, the normal group of Greg and Sandy and Larry and Jim, they're a bunch of grumpy old codgety bastards that just scare everybody from the live. So they just wait for the replay. But
I'm here just to scare children.
yeah, there you go. There you go. But so Mark, tell us a little bit about your academy and we'll just kind of get in that way and then we'll get into the going back and forth about e-scouting.
Well, Michael, I appreciate the introduction. If I'm good at e-scouting, it's because I kind of had to.
Yeah.
I grew up in Missouri. I'm a whitetail hunter, from an early age, and I started elk hunting 34 years ago. So this will be my 34th year, and I've missed 2 seasons out of the 34. And my wife was like, the 2 years I missed, I was like, we almost got divorced. And business things got in the way. And so, from Missouri, I would come out for maybe a month, somewhere between 3 weeks to a month a year. And there was just no way to do it, to put boots on the ground. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of boots on the ground scouting. I would rather save my days to hunt unless I had an unlimited number of days. I would recommend people concentrate on scouting while they're hunting more than the summer. Like, we were just looking at some bulls that I've been looking at this summer, which is really one of the few times I've went out and looked for elk. But these bulls, they're great to look at, but they're probably not going to be anywhere near there on September 1st.
Yeah.
Now, it's nice to know that there's a big elk in the area.
Yep.
And primarily we were looking for cows. And you can make some judgments on them and you can look for historical, but I really had to learn from the very beginning how to really break down hunting areas and do my own hunt planning, coming from Missouri. The biggest thing was, first of all, I want to apologize for my voice. It's terrible. And so if you guys are listening, I'm going to have another throat surgery here in the next few weeks, so it'll get better, but we'll have to just struggle through it. So anyway, in the early days, I'm an old guy and I'm 57 years old. And there was no tools when I started. There was topography maps, literally.
Yep.
Checked them out at the library. And then Google Earth came along and I paid $399 for Google Earth. And now it's free, of course.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the other things I have going in my advantage is I'm a tech guy. And so I learned the tech when it was just barely tech. I had the Onyx chip. I had, then to the app, and then I still use Google Earth. Like, I still think Google Earth is way, way, way underutilized. And so I was lucky that I got to grow up with the technology. So I really invested in it. And I think that helped me. And I've always been a tech guy, like I said, so I was very careful about marking waypoints for all the elk that I killed, all the elk that I encountered. Every elk I came across, I always dropped pins for them. And for some reason, I was pretty consistent about that. And then years and years and years later, when I decided to do this eScouting elk course, I started looking back and trying to find all the waypoints I could find. And I started trying to figure out what was the commonalities between all of these waypoints. And that's where a lot of my theories, started to develop was from some of that historical sightings, kills, encounters, things like that. And it didn't take long before I started seeing some really obvious trends. And I did a podcast this morning, and the guy, we were talking about North Slopes, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I love North Slopes. And we were like, yeah, that's what I hunt. And I'm like, well, I like North Slopes too. And he just kept on about the North Slopes. I'm like, well, to be honest with you, that's only one of 12 things I look for. I mean, I love to find a good North Slope, but I will not hunt a North Slope unless it has some of the other 12 finding features that I want. Because just a North Slope by itself, to me, just isn't what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, that's kind of how the Treeline Academy came to be. And to be honest, in my 30s, guys, I wouldn't have shared anything with anybody. I mean, to get a waypoint out of me would have been incredibly difficult. But nowadays, I've come to realize that I really love doing education. I love it, and I love giving back to the sport that I love.
Yep.
And I get some hate every now and then. I'm sure you guys do too.
Oh, yeah.
And I get it. Why are you teaching people? You're ruining elk hunting. You're this. You're that. I'm like, well, the way I look at it is, I'd rather share the woods with guys that have some knowledge than a bunch of guys that have no clue, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love the journey, and I really enjoyed it. And I really, to be honest, guys, I had no idea that it would kind of catch on like it has. And so I'm honored. I'm glad you guys had me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, elk hunting has gained popularity so much, and there's a lot of people out there that are exactly like you that live in middle parts of the states or eastern, and they don't have that ability. I mean, I'm pretty lucky. I can jump in my truck in an hour and a half. I'm at my elk camp, and so, but not everybody has that. So eScouting has become a tool that has helped them dial in, become more successful. And basically, when they have boots on the ground, they have a really good understanding of the area. And so, see, I'm like you. I started elk hunting in 1988, and just like you with the e-scouting, with me with the calling, there was nothing. I mean, in the 90s we got the Primos videos coming along,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
there was nothing. I mean, Larry D. Jones was doing some stuff, and I was pretty fortunate in 98 or 99 to get into the hunting industry with Rocky Jacobson and be his right hand man and pro staffer. And man, it's you want to talk about intimidating, Mark. My very first event with Rocky was a elk calling event in Oregon over at a Sportsman's Warehouse, and we show up and start setting in the booth. And in the booth next to us is Dan Whitmus and Al Morris. To the right of us is Jim Horn. We had Larry D. Jones. We had Dieter Kaboth. We had Ralph Moline. I mean, you're talking about some of the forefathers,
Legends.
and I go to dinner with all these guys. And here I am, a 29-year-old punk kid still learning this whole elk hunting. I didn't say a freaking word that night at dinner. I just listened to these guys that I had heard on cassette tapes and this and that. But it was awesome. But I want to touch on a point that you made about the bulls. You never know. I remember a couple of years ago, Ryan DC Outfitters was talking about one of the bulls that he had on camera multiple years during the summer, but then that bull would always disappear during September. And then he finally found that bull 5 miles from where he was on camera, and it took him 3 years before he found that bull. So it's one of the things that I talk a lot in. If you actually do boots on the ground scouting, it's great to see bulls, but I'm actually more interested in finding the cows and calves, because that's what's going to tell me where those bulls are going to be come September. So, and then find those rutting zones, those rutting areas. So So when you kind of start looking at a new area, what's kind of your thought process? What kind of catches your eye saying, "Hey, that's kind of an area that I want to kind of dive into a little bit more."
So it depends on what I'm primarily a caller,
Hmm.
at least I have been. And I'm starting to realize now that I wish elk were as easy to call today as they were in the early 2000s, late 90s. Don't you in the 1989, 90? I mean, I was terrible back then. I mean, terrible. And we called in bulls all the time. And they're just wiser. They're wiser, but it's not it's definitely can be done, but it just requires a little more. At least I feel like you got to be a little more savvy
Yep.
than you used to be. And but for me, I kind of decide first if am I going to do a visual hunt or am I going to do a calling hunt? Because I look for different types.
Uh-oh.
Locked up.
Well, the rest of us are good, so we definitely know it's his side.
And the terrain is more conducive to spot and stalk. So I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I'm going to try to do a little bit of combination of the two. But for me, one of the first things I try to do is like, if you guys are listening to this, you've got to hunt an area that has a good population of elk.
Hmm.
Now I don't look for the places that have the most. I don't look for the absolute most bull to cow ratios. I don't look for the highest odds of percentage. It's kind of complicated, but I have a database that I wrote. Again, I'm an IT guy. I wrote a database about 10 years ago, and I've been putting in harvest data for Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Idaho for the past 10 years. And it ranks every unit. It does historical averaging, and it comes up with a score, and it scores the units for me. And it's shocking to me, guys, how many of the units are in the top 10 every single year. But they're not the best. Like they're like 1 year, they're never at the top of the kill percentage. They're never at the top of the total bulls. But when you take bull to cow, 6 point bulls, total bulls killed, total numbers of hunters, elk objective, over or under, I rank all of that and I weight it and I run a weighted average on it and it gives a raw score. So what I try to do is I look at units based on 6 or 7 criteria, not just is it a good harvest percentage. Because you guys know all of these states compile their stats differently.
Yep.
Some of them have mandatory reporting. Some have random. Montana still random calls people on the telephone. I'm like, Lord. And then you got states like Idaho that require surveys.
Yep.
And so, some states are better than others, but I really rely on this weighted average, and I kind of make some decisions based on that. And it does ebb and flow. Like, every once in a while, I'll get units that'll show up in the top 10 that haven't ever been there before. Um, and then I get units that fall out that were really good units, and they kind of fall out at certain times. But one of the things I want to make sure I'm clear to everyone is another reason that if I'm good at eScouting, the other reason is you said that you live a mile and a half from your elk camp. There is a ton that, I mean, the success rate, if you get used to an area and you understand an area and you get dialed to an area, it's a huge advantage, right?
Absolutely.
But for me, that's just not my style. I could probably kill a lot more elk if I went back to some of the great places I've been. And my buddies, oh, they get so mad at me. They're like, hey, are we going to go back to that spot?
Nope.
No. I'm a new place guy. I'm always testing my e-scouting theories. I'm always testing things. I love marching into new places. And I know this is going to be hard to believe, but in 34 years of elk hunting, I have probably been to the same place Man, less than 3 or 4 different times in 30
Wow.
years.
Wow.
Like last year I never even drove through the units. This year, I'm kind of excited. Like I went into the unit and I actually took some pictures of some bulls. That's new for me. So, and I drove some roads and made some notes. And I'm like, what am I doing? Am I turning into a real elk hunter here? I'm like, so I love the adventure of developing new spots. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you're listening to this, that's not the way to kill 350 bulls. But if you want to just have the time of your life, you never know what's coming. You don't even know if if I can get llamas down the trail or not. I have no idea if the trail's even there sometimes.
Yeah.
I love that. I thrive on it and I look for that.
But that's one of the things that I've been blessed to. I mean, I've hunted elk, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Utah, and all over the state of Idaho, and that's one of the cool things that I've enjoyed about hunting areas is your your forest and your topography varies just a little bit from different areas. And I was doing a podcast last night, and that's what I was talking to them about was, don't so many people fall in love with an area and they just go to that area again and again and again and again. And even though elk numbers dwindle, they're still there. And
Yeah,
I'll ask him, I'm like, why do you keep going there? And it's like, because that's where we've always hunted.
that's right.
And that's why, the group I hunt with, that's why every year we make it a point to go and scout at least one new area, because we never know. We think we have it good where we're at now with, I mean, elk over objective. We have spots where we don't see anybody, but I mean, we may go to another place and I mean, elk numbers may be better. The age class of bull may be better, but so many people just get pigeonholed into that one area that they're afraid to go out. So, um, let me ask you this. One of my favorite tools that I introduced to these guys in Elk Calling Academy and several other people, I'm kind of curious if you ever use it or what your thought on it is. Fatmap.com.
Oh yeah, I use it all the time. Now I don't use it as much anymore because Go Hunt now with the terrain analysis, they do a lot of the slope stuff now.
Okay.
Onyx is doing it. And have you guys tried the new Spartan Forge yet?
The what?
Spartan Forge?
Uh-uh.
Oh man. It's it doesn't have everything that I would like to see it have, but it has some tools. That's really the problem, guys. One of the things I teach in my course is you got to approach elk hunting like you're working on your car.
Yeah.
If you're going to work on your car, you can't fix everything with a screwdriver. So getting stuck, I spoke at this event. I was making fun of people. I had everybody raise their hand if they used platform A, right? Without saying that, everybody raised their hand. And I said, all these other platforms, nothing. So I'm like, oh, so you guys are Kool-Aid drinkers. I said, now you guys got your platform A tattoos yet?
Yeah.
Have you got your tattoo yet? And they're laughing. And I'm like, guys, you are limiting yourself when you're using one tool.
Yeah.
Like Fat Map. Fat Map was never created for hunters, right?
No, it wasn't.
And was for skiers basically. The way I understand it, like hiker, skier type
Yep,
stuff.
yep, yep.
But man, they used to have, well, they still have really good, but their slope analysis stuff is incredible. And that's what I used to use it for a lot. And I've kind of gotten away from it now. I know they made some new improvements. I need to go back and revisit it, but I found this Spartan Forge. It's a whitetail kind of tool, but what they got is custom topography, meaning, the typical Western topography map is a 200-foot index with 200-foot index with a 40-foot intervals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're out in breaks country, if you're out in New Mexico, if you're out in Arizona, if you're hunting even in Utah, you got these deep, deep coulees, right? But you look on the map, it looks like Kansas.
Yep.
You're walking along and it looks like, oh, I can cross here. And you get there and it's a freaking cliff because it's 40-foot drop. Well, it's only one contour line. So now in big mountains, it's got a 600-foot elevation change. 200 works fine. But when you got a coulee that's got 150 to 200-foot drops, everything looks like Kansas on the map. So it's very deceiving. So anyway, what this Spartan Forge has is you can set it. I want to see 10-foot intervals. Dude, when you set them to 10 foot, it just paints the picture.
That's awesome.
Not only does it set a 10-foot interval, but it shades the slope in colors by steepness. So literally, you can just walk the orange color all the way to the top for the best path. So yeah, it does a few other things, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to use it for that feature for
Oh,
navigating coulee country.
yeah,
I've,
tracking
ne-
routes. Yeah,
I've never seen anything better than that user-defined contour.
that's way cool. Gonna have to check that out. Yeah, because that's one of the things. I mean, dropping pins, whether you're on X or base map or any of those others out there, you drop a pin, hey, I want to check this area out, but then trying to find your best way in and out of there, efficiency, that you're saving energy, ability to get in there for the hunt. Man, that sounds like a great tool to, you know, be able to do that. And one of the favorite overlays on Fat Map that I have is I'll do a 10,000-foot view of a new area, and I'll turn on the compass with the different color shading to immediately pick out the northeastern facing slopes. And what's funny is I used to be one of those guys just focused on northeastern facing, and oh man, you just got to find these, you got to find benches, third of the way down from the top if you can find a bench, all that stuff that we all did early on with eScouting, looking for those things. But a couple of years ago, we switched to this new area about 5, 6 years ago. And there was one spot up on the mountain that I kept looking at, and that little voice inside me saying, "You need to go check that out. You need to go check that out." And I'm like, "No, that's the southern face of the mountain. That's the hot face of the mountain. Why on earth would you go up there?" And 2 years ago, I said, "You know what? I got into camp before any of the other hunting partners. I said, screw it. I'm just going to do a solo bonsai mission and go up there because topography showing me there's a decent sized bench up there." And in fact, we even started hiking up the trail one year, and we made it about 3/4 of a mile and said, screw this. This is the hot side of the mountain. Once I finally dedicated and went in there, it is one of our hottest frickin' elk hunting spots because of the benches, the ponds, I mean, there's just some hidden deep draws in there that you can't see from the ground. You can't see from another ridge until you drop in there. And I mean, we'll routinely go into this one drainage and there's 7, 8 bulls in there every frickin' time. And it's just because of that little voice that told me to go look. So that's kind of got me, expanding my thought process when I'm kind of e-scouting. So, um, do you kind of do that too? Do you kind of take a broader picture? I know you said you had 12 things, and I don't want you to give too much information because I'm going to try to get money out of these jackwagons to
Oh
join your
no, that's
e-scouting
fine.
course and get good.
I appreciate that, but so I do exactly what you said, but a little different way. So I came to the same conclusion in some spots, right? I'm like, this isn't exactly north. This bench isn't, it doesn't even have that great of benches, or it doesn't have this. So what I look for is 12 criterias.
Hmm.
And if I can find a spot that has six, if I can find a spot that has 4 to 6 of them, I'm like, okay. It may not be north. North is one. North orientation, not north orientation, but orientation is one of the 12.
Yep.
Okay, north, northeast, northwest is definitely a bonus for early season elk. It just is. Okay, but it's not the end all, as you found out.
Oh yeah.
Bit benches and halfway up, more than halfway up. That's two. That's one. The drainage that slope is on, if it does not have an established trail in the bottom of it, meaning on the topography map there is no trail in the bottom, and it's got relaxed beads, it doesn't have a steep runoff, it's got like the opportunity for water to gather in spots and not run off. That's a third feature. Edge habitat, is it edge of a burn,
Yep.
edge of a beetle kill, edge of a meadows, any kind of edge. Elk love the edge of anything. Now they like some edges more than others, but edge habitat hands down is attractive to elk.
Yeah.
Slope degree, you talked about fat map.
Yep.
I've read every single research study that's ever been done on slope angle, and it 20 degrees is the magic slope for elk. Now, does that mean they're going to be on 30? No. Does that mean they're not going to be on 15? No. But when you find that 20 degree with the right bench, with the right drainage, with an edge, you're like, whoa, there's four things right there. So I don't get fixated on north slopes.
Yeah.
I don't get fixated on any of them. I want to find places that have multiples. And what I call it in the course and everything, is stacking the odds. What I want to do is stack those features up. And when I can find a place that has a significant number of those 12, not all 12, yeah, I've never found a spot that has all 12. But if I can find one that has some of them, significant number of them, I feel pretty good about it, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so, one of the things you asked me what I do first, I mentioned the stats, but one of the things I do is I use Google Earth and I draw lines throughout this whole area, and I do the flyover tours. A lot of guys run into problems with it because they don't know the settings. Because again, Google Earth, they didn't design it for hunters, right? But if you can set the flyover settings to the right, it's basically a drone flyover. And I cannot tell you how valuable that has been for me over the years, especially my style. Remember, I'm always going to new areas. When I do those drone flyovers and I go through my process of evaluating those 12 criterias, when I get to a spot, I feel like I've been there before. And that's what I want. When I walk in there and I feel like I've been there before, I know I've done my work. I know that my hunt plan is pretty legit. And some hunt plans I do better job than others, but after 34 years, excuse me, I still do them. I do every hunt. Now, once you start getting a tremendous amount of experience, you might not have to take your hunt plan to the nth degree that a newer hunter might want to do. But I have multiple plans, multiple backup plans, all fleshed out. We talked about route planning. I am big in route planning. Remember, I've never been to these areas before. So I use aerial photo, I use fat map, I use Go Hunt, terrain analysis, and I make sure that I plan the best possible route to my cams, to my glassing spots before I go on the hunt. Because none of the tools that you can use in the field are that good at route planning.
Yeah.
But if you use Google Earth route profiles and you can see the average slope, you can see all the steep spots, you can work around them. And once you draw that line and look at the profile, dude, you can tweak that route until you got the perfect mix of steepness, staying out of the timber. And then I always do the Naismith principle. That's another thing I do. What that basically means is I calculate the travel time based on net gain in elevation, net loss in elevation over whatever distance it is. And let's say it's 3.5 hours. Well, I've got it in the notes on that waypoint. So that when I pull it up in the morning, I'm like, I'm gonna go there. I know how long it's gonna take me to hike there.
Mm,
And I can't tell you, you know how it is, guys. It makes no sense, especially early archery, to get to a glassing spot 30 minutes after daylight.
yep.
I mean, it's better than not being there, but
Yeah.
man, you could have missed the party.
Yep.
And also, I feel like there's almost nothing worse than not staying till dark. How many guys do you know that are like, well, Joe, we should start heading back to camp. We're off trail a couple miles. We should get back to the trail before dark. Well, they're leaving at the prime time,
Oh yeah.
right? But if you have your route already planned and it's already in blue in your app, you're going to be way more comfortable knowing you can hike out of there, right? And I know for a lot of us that sounds obvious, right? But these newer hunters are not doing it.
No.
They're not taking the time to plan these routes out before they get in the field. You're never going to follow the script perfectly, right? But the more you can do, the better off you're going to be.
Oh my gosh, guys, I don't think you realize how much gold was in that little bit right there. I mean, I'm going to encourage each of you guys to come back and watch this because there was so much information packed into that thing. I mean, I remember these guys have heard me talk about, early on in my hunting career that Bryce and I we were those type of guys that would go hit, and our mentality was, you know what, we hear a bugle, we're going after them, we'll get them on the ground, then we'll figure out how we're getting out after. And with the technology today, the ability to do that. I mean, early on we didn't have that stuff, and then the first Garmin GPSs came out, and trying to track at night with headlamps to use that freaking dim lit screen and find your way out and all that. I mean, I don't know how many times that we had to backtrack because we ended up cliffing out or into a buckbrush field that was, unpassable. I mean, I remember one time we had a bull bugle and we got to a buckbrush field like that. And I'm like, screw it. We don't have time to go around. We're going through. And Bryce and I got down on our hands and knees and crawled for probably 250 yards through that thing to get to the other side. And we get to the other side and I look down and I'm like, Bryce, you went in with 4 arrows. You came out with one. And he goes, I don't give a shit. Those other three are staying in there because I ain't going through that stuff again. So, but no,
Oh
that's,
man.
I mean, guys, the tidbit there of planning your route and tracking on onX so that when you go to the field you are completely prepped is just the amount of time that can save you is so invaluable, right there. And Mark, I'm kind of like you where you had all that database and you gathered all that year. I was a little opposite. What I did early on was I started taking a spiral ring notebook and journaling every single day
Oh
when I got
man.
back to camp.
Man, I wish I would have done that. I
Oh
wish
my,
I'd have done more of that.
going back and reading the hunts, the habits, the tendencies, everything that you pick up. And then, you kind of start taking some of these elk tendencies and you put them kind of in human context because we can understand human behavior and human context pretty good. And that's one thing that, kind of teach in the elk calling academy is you, if you take elk behavior and you put it into a human context, you will understand the situation, pretty good. Just like, you were talking with calling and the difficulty. I mean, early on, the challenge aggressive was hot, and then everybody started doing it, and bulls kind of changed. And with us, what we kind of teach is you take that bull's temperature. Every encounter is different. Read the situation, read the bull, give him what he's asking for. It's not we're not dictating what's happening. That bull is. And I used to tell somebody with the aggressive is it's just like walking down Main Street of your town. Every dude that you pass, tell him to F off.
Yeah.
Most people are going to look at you like you're crazy, sidestep around. Eventually, you're going to run into the dude that has a really, really bad day, and the two of you are going to grapple. You're going to roll in the streets, and you're going to end up sharing a cell. That's kind of that aggressive approach. So, but um, God, I had a question and then I just lost my thought. Do any of you guys have any questions for Mark on e-scouting or tools or thoughts?
What was the name of the tool that you're so fond of, Mark?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't learn about this tool until 2 weeks ago. Now it hasn't been around that long, in my defense, but it's called Spartan Forge.
Spartan
Mark?
Forage.
Forge, Forge.
Forge. Okay, Spartan
Yeah.
Forge.
Bo Montonic, you know where East Meets West podcast?
Yep,
Do you
yep.
know Bo Montonic? He has a couple podcasts where he talks about it. And I didn't get a chance to listen to him yet. And anyway, I was at the summit and some guy from Ohio was telling me about it. I'm like, yeah, it sounds. To be honest, I kind of blew him off. And I started looking at it. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can set it to 10. And when you set that 10-foot interval, the route that you want to walk out of a ditch becomes so obvious, it's ridiculous. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? How many times have you walked up to a hill and you're looking at your topo map going, what the hell?
Yeah.
This is not what it looks like. Especially when you got your headlight on and you're freaking dark. And so I love telling this story. I'm gonna tell this story real quick. So you were talking about going in the buckbrush. I had killed a cow. It was my second year elk hunting, and we killed this cow. And we had topographic maps back then. And we weren't all that far from the road. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And we were going to the road. We thought we were going to the road. And we're hiking, and all of a sudden we're in the swamp. But we didn't walk through a swamp to get to the elk, right? So we're in this swamp, buckbrush, and we got 100 pounds on our backs, and we are freaking hours of slogging this shit, and we just can't get to the road. And we're standing there, and we see a headlight in the distance, and I'm like, oh shit, there's the road. Oh, thank God. But it's way, way over there, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So we're far from the road and it gets closer. He comes around a corner and all of a sudden the light's closer. And I'm like, well, that ain't too bad. Maybe a mile. And all of a sudden it's a little closer. I'm like, oh shit, we're closer than I thought. It was pitch black night, no moon, no nothing. And that truck drives right by us. Like you could almost touch it. We were walking in the ditch of the road. We were in the ditch of the road for an hour. And we didn't know the road was there. We were in this buckbrush. Literally the dust from this truck was blowing on us. So then we get to the road. Some of you old guys, the new guys, this would never happen because they have Onyx, they have all the stuff. But we get to the road and we're like, oh shit, which way is the truck?
Yeah.
Left or right? Left or right, right? So we're like, okay. So at least we were smart enough to leave the keys in the gas tank. So we said, okay, you go that way, I'll go this way, and whoever finds it, pick the other one up. And that's how we used to operate, man. Oh man.
Oh, you're bringing back a lot of memories with that. That's funny, but no, see, my hunting partners. Oh yeah. So my hunting partners gave me the nickname One More Ridge because it never fails when out hunting. It's always like, well, I just want to go over to there, and well, I just want to go over to there. So this weekend when we were up camping, Bryce's son, who's grown up, hunting with us and stuff, he gets to camp and all of a sudden he's like, man, it's chilly. I'm going to go throw on a sweatshirt. And he comes bebopping back, and I could see from a distance he has this shit-eating grin on his face. But he found this sweatshirt that has a silhouette of a bull, and underneath it says One More Ridge. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's funny. But the other thing that I used to do with these guys when Onyx and all that used to, was early on, I'd say One More Ridge, hey, let's go over there. And they'd be like, yeah, I don't know, it looks pretty steep. So what I would do is open up Onyx and really expand the lines to get those grid lines farther apart. And be like, no, it's not that steep. See, look at how far apart the grid lines are.
Well, I'll be honest with you. So on X a year ago, you guys know this, probably, but just people that are listening, about a year ago, OnX made a change to their topography map, right? And before that was absolutely freaking terrible. OnX was the worst topography map in the industry, bar none. Everybody always used to say, man, OnX just lies to you. I'm like, hey, it's not that they're lying, they just don't have enough lines.
Yep.
And so about a year ago, they went away from that gray. You remember the gray.
Yeah.
Now they've got the tree cover. They got the true 200, which is way better than it used to be. But it's still, guys, and you guys that are listening, it's still not the scanned USGS topography map. That's why I use Gaia still to this day, because Gaia is one of the only tools that allows that scanned image. And if I'm hunting steep country, I've got to have the best contours I can.
Yeah.
And especially that bear, I do a lot of bear hunting. Topography detail is incredibly important, for bear hunting. So I always tell this too. One of the other tips, guys, I know it costs money, but it's not that much money. My suggestion is you always run 2 apps all the time, every time, no exception. Not only for just backup sakes, but you've got 2 topography maps to look at, 2 different ones. You've got 2 different aerial photo views. Because a lot of people don't realize that all these apps and all these platforms buy their aerial photos from different sources. So when you look at Go Hunt aerial photo, it's different than OnX.
Yep.
When you look at OnX, it's different than Gaia. And sometimes it really pays off to have multiple views. So for another $30 a year to have 2 subscriptions, and I'm not going to endorse one of whatever you want.
Yeah.
I highly recommend learning how to and running 2 systems on every hunt.
And guys, when he's talking about the Gaia, it's GAIA GPS is the app.
Do you
But
use
yeah,
it?
two systems, and I mean, I've had that debate with a lot of people, Onyx, Base Map, and then one thing I tell everybody is, you know what, if you started on Onyx, Base Map's going to seem really, really weird to you. If you ran base maps first, Onyx is going to seem really, really weird to you. Go Hunt. I mean, just all the different other systems out there. I think what you kind of get used to that people again pigeonhole themselves with that one. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Having that secondary to double check and the ability to have a second view of that. And I know everybody. Oh, somebody was talking to the about 6 months ago about the new 3D feature on the Go Hunt, and they were
Yeah,
just
yeah.
ranting and raving about how good and yeah, the apps and everything are coming such a long way, especially that 3D when I'm at home, switching it to 3D and being able to go up the ridge or fly, and spin it around and take a look at different things. I mean, God, it's come such a long ways. But so in fact, one of the questions I had for you was kind of what your favorite go-to was, and I think we actually just established that one.
Well, I'll be honest with you, my absolute favorite go-to is Google Earth, still to this day.
Even
Um,
even even on your phone?
no, not on my phone. Now I have Google Earth on my phone because I'm telling you, you guys know this. I'm finding more and more of my hunting spots. I'm getting decent cell. And if you can get good, decent cell, there's no image better than Google Earth
Yeah.
aerial images. There's none. Hands down, no question. I'm not even going to argue with anybody. There's nothing better. Now, in the field, you have to have cell in order for the mobile app to work. So, that doesn't work in all cases, which is fine. But when I'm doing my work, I've got 2 monitors at a minimum, usually 4, where I'm running Go on one, whatever app on the other. I use all the apps. Here I even go this far, guys. I pick a different app depending on what I'm hunting.
Oh,
If I'm hunting private land, like meaning like if I'm hunting where there's a lot of private land borders and I got to navigate that mess, then I use a different app. If like I mentioned, if I'm hunting a real steep, gnarly country and I need the best contours that I can possibly get, there's no question. I run Gaia, no question. If I'm running terrain that's not as steep, then I do away with something else. If so everybody's like, well, man, that seems like a lot of work. It is, but here's the benefit. If you switch them up, you learn how to use them all really well. I can turn one on, I can turn another one on, and there's almost no lag for me on how to use it, how to import, export, move stuff around. Like, for example, in Google Earth, well, you were talking about route planning. Since we talked about that, I want to throw a couple of tidbits out. Sorry, my voice. Here's my route planning process. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Maybe you might learn something or two. I don't know. So Gaia has a feature that nobody else has, that almost nobody knows about. It's called Snap To, meaning you can go to trailhead A and you can click your camp 10 miles away and it'll lock magnet to the trail with one click. You know how in most of the apps you got to click, 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 click,
Yep,
click,
yep.
click, click.
Yeah.
Gaia, you hit the starting point, you hit the ending point, and it automatically attaches it to the trail. Guys, it saves so much time.
Wow.
And it's so freaking accurate. And then all you do is right click, export, drop the file on your desktop, go to OnX, go hunt, import, bam, it's in there. Guys, it takes 2 seconds. You couldn't click that many clicks in the amount of time that I can export it. And you know how it is. If it's a complicated trail, you know how you have to click, 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 click. And so that's one feature. So that I use all the time for route planning. The next thing I use is, and again, not many people know about this, in Google Earth, when you do a route. So for example, I do the route in Gaia with the 2-click, boom, like I said, export it. Once I got it exported, then I can open it whenever I want. It's a KML file, right? So I open it in Google Earth. And then I right click. So if you guys are taking notes for you listening or listening to this podcast, you right click on the route and it says show profile. There's no function for it. There's no button for it. There's no menu item for it. You have to right click and say show profile. And when it shows the profile, guys, it gives you the most detailed profile of that route. And then you can take all the points and start massaging them to take out all the steep sections, to take out it gives you the average slope, it gives you the maximum slope, it gives you the total elevation gain, total elevation loss, and then you can calculate how long it's going to take you to hike, right? So guys, I don't do every route, but what I do is every glassing spot, I do my route to. Every camp, I do my route to. So when I'm in the field and I'm going to glassing spot A, I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get there.
Wow.
And I know the route that I'm going to take. And then I use another tool called Viewshed. I run a Viewshed on that glassing spot. So when I get to that glassing spot, I know exactly what I'm going to be able to see from that spot before I ever get there. So I do not hike up the mountain anymore and get to a glassing spot. You know, you remember the old days.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh shit, I'm gonna hike. I hope when I get up there, I hope I can see something, right?
Right.
Because you can do the 3D, right? You can do it all, but you can't do it perfect.
No.
Because you know how the slope of the ground sometimes, like,
Yep.
if it's too gentle, you can't see the bottom.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Well, if you run that Viewshed tool, I run it from 6 feet off the ground. So from 6 feet off the ground, show me the Viewshed from this spot 6 feet off the ground, and it colorizes everything that you can see from that spot. So I have an entire module in my course dedicated to that function. It is probably the most valuable function for spot and stalk elk hunters, the guy that want to put eyes on elk,
Yeah.
that there is. There's nothing more valuable than that tool. So
No, and I mean
I,
that's holy crap. I mean that's just, gold right there. And that just supports what you said early on, that when you step into a hunting spot, you feel as though you've actually been there because of that view shed. I mean, you're basically getting that view almost like, and I mean setting that 6 feet, Joel might have to set it at 4'3", so that
well,
way it's
that's the
more
problem, guys.
realistic. He's not even
That's
listening.
that's the problem, because it took me forever to figure this out. Remember, Google Earth was not built for freaking hunters.
Yeah.
So the
No,
view
but
shed
oh my
tool,
gosh.
the view shed tool was built for building landscapes and for cell phone towers to see how far the signal would go, right?
Yeah.
It took me forever to figure out the minimum height. And the minimum height, I'm going to give away the secret that is in my course, but the minimum height that you have to set it at in order for it to work is 2.1 meters. And let me tell you, there was a lot of trial, and I started at
Trying to figure
100
it out.
feet and just kept going down until I figured out. I started at 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. Because, obviously I wanted it setting on the ground,
Right.
but it won't, Google Earth won't allow it. The minimum setting is 2.1 meters.
2.1 meters. Holy crap.
And what app is that on you're referring to, Mark?
That's Google Earth.
That's on Google Earth.
Okay, Google Earth.
Yeah.
But remember, the profile tool and the view shed tool are only available. Got to hear me on this. It's only available if you right click on a waypoint or a route. There's no menu for it. There's no drop down for it. There's no instructions for it. It's not in the help. But if you right click, it'll show you show view shed. It'll say show profile.
So that's basically where a guy is going from Gaia and doing that route, exporting it, then opening it in Google Earth.
And
Then,
analyzing it.
yep, then you can right click on that route and then you can get these tools
The
available.
profile. Then you get it all where you want. And then you export it one more time and put it in your app of choice.
Yep. God, and
Now,
then
I know
you
that
have all
sounds, I know
information.
that sounds like a lot of work, guys, but one of the things I teach in my course is this importing and exporting of routes and waypoint. It used to be hard, right? It used to be complicated. But these programs have gotten so much better, drag and drop, right?
And faster.
Oh, way fast. And they take GPS, they take KMZ, they take KML. So the format doesn't even matter that much anymore. They're just way better. So one of my best tips to give people is learn how to do importing and exporting, moving data around. It will change the way you do your hunt planning. If you try to do everything in just one tool all the time, I think you'll be disappointed with your results. Now, they'll work. I always say this all the time, guys. If you want to be an average elk hunter, just keep acting like one.
Yeah.
It's 10% or less, guys.
Yep.
If you're perfectly happy killing a bull every 10 years, just keep doing what the average guys do. In Montana, they just came out with the stats. It's 6% for archery, DIY. So if you like to kill a bull every 20 years, so be it. But I don't. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've had some dry spells, but geez, 20 years.
Yeah, no, I think I'll keep doing the work so I can stay in that 90%,
Right. So,
90% harvest rate.
And that's all we're trying to do, right? We're trying to develop some tactics and some tools
Yeah.
that will move our success needle
Yep.
up the bar a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time, and you guys are lucky. You get to hunt a lot. Like me, I'm blessed, right? There's two ways to become a better elk hunter in my mind: experience
Yep.
and education.
Yep.
So let's take you guys. So let's say you hunt elk for 40 days a year. Okay. Well, and then we got this little Midwest guy that he goes 10 days a year. He gets 10 days of vacation. You're getting 4 years of experience for every 1 year of his.
Yep.
He'll never catch up with the experience curve. You know, I hunt elk last year. I was almost 80 days, 40
Holy
days.
crap.
So I got 8 years on that guy, right? Now, I don't know if I learned as much as he did in the 10, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Experience matters,
Oh,
right? And people underestimate that. So to combat the experience, because you can't do nothing about experience. If you work and you got to provide, you got 2 weeks, you got 2 weeks. That's all you got. But what I'm trying to convince people to do is, okay, you're going to gain the experience in those 15 days, right? That's what you got. But what you've got to do now is educate yourself.
Yep.
To combat that experience. Your podcast. There's so many good podcasts now. Man, I wish some of these resources were available when I started. What about you?
Oh, gee.
Can you imagine? So you got all these, you got your platform. If people learn how to call, you guys are hands down. If you learn how to eScout, maybe I'm the hands down. But if you will learn how to like generally hunt elk, I think elk 101 is great. I think some of the other stuff is great. But guys, invest a little bit of your time and resources. Whether you do mine or not, it doesn't matter. But you need to educate yourself. That's the magic bullet. When you can combine experience and education, you're going to see the needle move up.
Absolutely. And see, like, you know, Greg's in Idaho with me. Joel is Utah. Sandy is you know, eastern Washington. Mr. Larry is Oklahoma. You know, we've got people from, you know, all over. I mean, just the tidbits that you've already dropped just in this hour long, I can only imagine what's, you know, contained within your e-course. But so Greg, Sandy, Joel, Larry, any other questions, guys?
What is Mark's e-course?
I didn't hear that. Say that.
So wants to know what your course is.
Oh, it's so my course is pretty specific, right? I do not try to teach you how to kill elk. I do not teach you how to call. I'll leave that to you guys. Guys, I haven't killed a bull over 350 yet. I don't know why I can't do it. Well, I know why. One reason, I can't let him walk by. That's one reason. But number two is I just am not a giant bull killer. I don't know why I can't get it done. Now, I just showed you guys some pictures that I hope to change that this year, but I kill a lot of elk. But what I can do is find elk. I've got a knack for it. I've got an ability for it. So I like to stay in my lane. There's 2 things I'm pretty good at, right? I'm pretty good at finding elk. And my course is everything I know. Now I need to go back and update with some things like Spartan Forge, all these new things I'm learning.
Yeah.
I need to add, right? And I'm going to do that. So it's 30 hours. You think this podcast is long? I had a wife and husband come to an event that I was speaking at, and the wife came up to me. She goes, "It's so nice to finally meet you. I've been listening to you every night for the past 2 years." And I'm like, her husband was laying in bed on his iPad watching my course.
Going through the course.
I couldn't tell if she was sick of me or happy with me. I don't know, but she it was funny. But so that is one thing I do. The second is bear hunting. You know, since I moved to Montana 8 years ago, bear hunting is an addiction for me. And so I spend about 40 days a year bear hunting. I spend about 60 days a year elk hunting and deer hunting. So
Rough
I'm
life,
really,
huh?
I'm really into bears and elk, right? That's my jam. And then my third component is for guys that feel like they've already got it, like they know what they're doing. They just want some tools. I built these Google Earth toolkits that we probably don't even have time to get into. Maybe we can do that on another podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll definitely have you back.
Yeah. So what I did with those toolkits was I added in all of the third-party data and made it a one file download so that you can have access to topography maps, all the unit boundaries, cattle allotments, fires, recreation, all the roads and trails, wilderness areas, everything that Onyx has basically, or GoHunt, you can now have in Google Earth. And what it allows you to do is side by side work,
Yeah.
which I can't tell you how valuable that is for me. And so those just got released about 6 months ago. So it took me a long time to get those done. I have 6 states done. So those are the 3 things I kind of focus on. And yeah, I'm excited for the season. I know you guys are too. This winter in Montana was a nightmare. So I'm ready for the fall.
So I think Larry was asking your course name and where he can find it. And
Oh, sorry.
I'll also drop a link to it in the description below on the replay. So,
Okay, it's tree. So about 6 months ago, I consolidated everything I kind of do into one site because people were having trouble finding this, finding that. So my llama rental stuff, my tent rental stuff, all my courses, everything's at treelineacademy.net.
treelineacademy.net.
Yeah.
And the one that you're probably wanting, Larry, is the elk course.
Um,
But also,
actually, the mapping information.
Yeah. So hey, so since you guys are on here live, next Monday, let me get the date. Next Monday, the 10th, I have a webinar, 2-hour webinar where I'm going to talk about all the advanced tactics of Google Earth. It's free webinar. You can come. I have 350 people already signed up for this webinar. So I've only done a few webinars and I've been averaging about, well, my limit is Zoom only allows me to have 500. So I cap out at 500. My last 2 sold out. And but this one is dedicated to Google Earth. That's what I've been getting inundated with, guys, is once people saw the view shed stuff, like we said,
yeah,
once people saw the root profile stuff, once people saw my toolkits, like, what do you mean you got 40 years of fires? I'm like, yeah, and you can turn them off 1 year at a time.
oh wow,
So if you only want to look at 5 years worth of fires, you can do that. And all the roads and trails and and match them up. So I'm a big believer in using multiple systems because as good as Onyx and GoHunt and all these apps are at roads, they still make mistakes.
yeah,
I found multiple mistakes, and when you can compare a hunt area, double check your roads with other resources, man, your hunt plan just gets better and better and better.
it's more
So anyway,
dialed
yeah,
in.
next Monday, at 6 o'clock. So the thing is, you have to sign up in advance because I can only take 500. So go to treelineacademy.net. It's right on the front page how to do it. And if you're interested in the Google Earth stuff, it's going to be a deep dive, 2 hours.
That'll be a good one.
Probably more than you wanted to know about Google Earth.
All right, Greg, how about you? Any questions for Mark before we wrap up tonight?
I'm a firm believer in the waypoints because it does give you a historical picture. That's what I've
Oh
done.
yeah,
Yeah.
good idea, exactly. And now
And
color
that's
coding them.
and that's the cool thing is yeah, color coding, dropping waypoints, and then getting that 10,000 foot view. And I mean, you go from looking at them on this to pulling them up on a computer with a large monitor to where all of a sudden you can look at that whole area of a hole. All of a sudden, man, those light bulbs go off, and all of a sudden you see patterns, tendencies, travel corridors, bedding areas, feeding areas. I mean, all the information that you can get from those. So, how about you, Mr. Sandy? Any questions?
Sandy's muted. He muted himself.
He'd probably
He's looking for the button right now.
He went to sleep.
no. He was cooking at first.
I can be a little boring, I guess. He's
No,
coming
he
from
was.
the
I got
edge
too
of the
much
sea.
background noise going most of the time to
We
not be
woke,
me.
we woke him up.
There he is.
Sandy.
So, Sandy, you got any questions for Mr. Mark?
Not really. I'm just listening and learning.
Well, that's the best thing to do. Listen more than talk. But yeah, Mark, this has been very, very valuable. Definitely want to have you back again on a future episode. Appreciate you taking your time. Um, Definitely the gold nuggets. So, as I stated before, when I upload the replay to this into the Elk Calling Academy online course, I will put links in the description below it over to Mark's program. I highly, highly encourage it. It's just more tools, more knowledge, just makes us that much better. And yes, Greg, us old dogs can learn new tricks. Maybe I should have pointed that at Larry instead of Greg.
Yes, that's for me.
Hey, I'm 57, guys. I mean, I know you guys are not that much. Yeah, I bet I'm older than almost all of you, if not all of you. And if I can stay on top of this stuff, so can everybody else. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard that excuse so much that I'm like, guys, like I said, if you want to be average, you can just stay average, right?
Stay
I mean,
average. And honestly, that's one of the things that, with the tools available, with your course, the Elk Calling Academy course, Elk 101, row hunting resources, Paul Medell.
yeah,
I mean, there's so many resources out there. The only problem is it's really truly if you think about the number of hunters that are out there, it's really a small handful that are willing. They'll spend money on the bows, they'll spend money on their packs, their boots, all that stuff, but they will not invest
I
in
know.
their education and knowledge.
They
And
sometimes don't spend $99 for 40 years of experience.
Dude, I mean, think about it. You could buy every one of the platforms you just said
yeah,
for one pair of crispy boots.
exactly. You could, but so many people. Well, and then I'll have people at sports shows that'll walk up and they're holding a Starbucks. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't have any money to invest in education or gaining, my knowledge. So I just, I scour hours and hours on YouTube to learn this stuff. And it's like, how's that working out for you? So,
That's, Kobe Rich. I don't know if you guys follow
yep,
Rich Outdoors, but he said it to me one time, like, really education is just the collection and reorganization of information that already exists in a lot of ways, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I think I've been on about 80 podcasts now. If you go back and listen to every single podcast that I've ever been on, you might be able to piece together 80% of the course, right? But it is in no organization. There's no method to it. It's random. But when you can take like what you guys got, the academy, step by step, work through it, it's invaluable taught that way.
yep,
Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to every podcast, but when you do both,
yeah.
when you hear it and then learn it, you're exponentially moving the needle, in my opinion.
Well, and there's a reason that 10% of the hunters are killing 90% of the game year after year after year. It's because they are investing in themselves and they are taking the time to do all that. So, but
Well, we didn't even talk about that. Remember that 6%?
yeah,
It's not really 6% because once you take out the top 10%,
yep,
once Brian Barney, once you guys, once Ryan Lampers, once those guys kill all their bulls, then you're left with that.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I hope that people that do listen to this after it comes out really start to understand that gear is important, your bow is important, shooting ability, fitness, but it's all part of the puzzle. And education, unless you got an unbelievable amount of experience. And I would be willing to bet, I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'd be willing to make a small wager that you guys with 40 years of experience each, you got one nugget tonight, at least one.
yeah,
Absolutely. Hey, and Mark,
Just like I did. When I went to the summit, the guy told me about the Spartan Forge. I'm like, I was totally embarrassed that I didn't know about that.
I
We
just
all
read,
learn, guys. We all learn.
yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, I just got registered for your meeting. It's on July 10th at 7 p.m., but it doesn't say what time zone.
Oh, 7 p.m. Mountain Time.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I need to fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know that. I'm gonna get that fixed.
Leave it to Larry to catch something like that. He's the one that
Oh,
he's the one that peruses my online course and tells me the shortcomings, and misspellings, and all that stuff.
Hey, Larry, maybe I need to hire you for mine too.
I'm pretty,
You know, my wife always tells me I got a lot of good ideas, but I am not the best writer in the world.
Oh, copywriting is not one of those things that's a lot of fun. That's why, I record videos on all my stuff, and then I found a couple of programs that actually will transcribe that into words, or
Yeah.
I'll just pull up Google and click on the mic, or actually Microsoft Word, and then click the mic and just start talking. But
Yeah,
then those thoughts get so jumbled, and so. All right, guys. So we're gonna let Mark go. Mark, again, appreciate you joining us tonight. So
Mark, thanks so much. We appreciate
thank
it.
you
Good
guys.
job.
We'll have to do it again. You know, if we do another one, what I really like to do sometimes, totally up to you guys, is kind of get a very specific topic that we
yep,
can really dig into.
yep.
Sometimes it's hard to talk broad view, right?
It
Stuff.
it
And
is, and tonight I kind of just wanted to introduce you
well,
and
it's the first time on. We got to figure out
yeah,
who this guy is.
to these guys, and so what we'll do is I'll because that's one of the things that I ask these guys a lot is what subjects do you guys want, and e-scouting was one of the big ones, and so what we'll do is we'll drill it down into specific topics, and yeah, make the most of it. So all right, guys,
Good.
you know where this is going. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks on the next Wapiti Live Q&A. Be safe, have fun, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Mark. Thanks, Mike.